Hello, welcome to Art Saturday. So I'm going to be making the video for this week. I'm Miss Gina, the teen librarian, and I'm going to be making the video for you this week for the Art Saturday project because I couldn't find any similar videos online. So this month's project is a mug rug. So you're going to get 2 pieces of material like this in your Art Saturday bag, with a piece of batting to go in between, and you're also going to get some thread, a needle, and some pins, and finally some spices that are going to go inside the mug rug, which makes it smell nice when you put your mug of hot tea or coffee or cocoa or whatever onto it. And this is an example of a finished one. So let's get started and I'll show you how to do this at home with your Art Saturday kit. The Art Saturday kits that I'm talking about are available for pickup this Saturday, February 19th, 2022, and they will be available both that Saturday and however long they last, as long as supplies last. So you just stop by the library to pick up your kit and you can make this at home. And by the way, Art Saturday kits is something that we do every month, just in case you didn't know about that. And usually the instructions are via a link to somebody else's YouTube video that I find online. So this is the first month that I'm doing my own video for it. Alright, so you're gonna get in your bag a needle that is already threaded, but when that thread runs out, you are going to have to thread it yourself. So you just want to turn your needle until you can see the eye. And the needles that I gave most of you in the bags have bigger eyes than this one, so it should be a bit easier for you. Then hold the tip of the thread, you see the thread there, between your fingers, and then just move the thread and the needle to each other and push the end of the thread through the eye of the needle. It does take some practice, so try to be patient with yourself and not get too frustrated if you can't get it. One thing you can try is you can snip the end of your thread a bit to make it have a clean end again, because it can be hard to get it through if your end starts to fray. You can also lick the ends or like put a little bit of wax or chapstick or something on them to try and get it to go through easier. Now I'm tying a knot, and now I need to do a double knot, so I need to do another knot on top of this knot so that it won't pull through the weave of the fabric when we start sewing. Okay, so to make a knot, make your thread go around in a circle, so you made a loop, and then push the ends through that loop. Okay, so now I have my loop, and my goal is to make this loop line up on top of the knot that I've already done. So the knot that I've already done is right there. So I'm going to use my finger to push this loop down over the knot that I've already made. And then when it's right on top of the knot that I already made, I pull it tight. That's how you do a double knot in the end of your sewing thread. That also takes practice. So now you want to have your picture on the top here, followed by your quilt batting layer, followed by your bottom layer, which will have a pattern on it. So you want to make sure that the side that is pretty is facing outwards. So this side, you can see it's a little bit more faded. That's the back side of the fabric. I'm going to line up all the edges neatly, as much as I can. Okay, now you'll see here in the example that you can see the stitches. So this isn't the kind of sewing where you're doing it on the wrong side or the opposite side of the fabric and then flipping it right side out. This is the kind where we're actually going to tuck the ends in and then sew on the outside, which is a lot easier on this kind of stiff fabric. Okay, so I'm going to fold down the edge like that, and I'm going to pin it. Alright, so you can see here that I folded my edge under, and now I'm pinning it down so it stays down. So to do that, you just put the pin in at the front side and then push it back in like that. I'm going to fold the edge of my back piece under too. You can even, with this stiff fabric, you can even pinch it a little bit to make it stay. And the pattern of the plaid helps you make it a little bit more straight, because you can just line it up with the lines on the plaid. Okay, now I'm lining these up together. So I did the front piece and the batting first, and then this, because I think it would be a bit difficult to do all 3 layers together and line them up. But now that this part is done, I can actually now take this pin out and push it through all the layers and then back through the front. Okay, so now this edge is ready for us to sew. So what I like to do is just put my needle through one side. I'm going to start it here. The reason why I'm doing that, rather than putting it through all 3 layers at once, is because I don't want my knot to show on this side when it's finished. If I put it through like this first instead, then my knot is going to be hidden inside, because this is going to go together like a sandwich like that. Okay, so now I'm just going to start sewing. So I'm going to push my needle in, and I pulled it out through the back, as you can see. So now I'm going to start at the back and push it through from the back. And I'm using the black line there on the plaid to help me keep this a straight line. So now it's coming back through from the front. And if you have a sewing machine at home and you have someone that you know how to use it already, or someone can help you use it, you could easily do that, but I'm just showing you the hand sewing way. So now, because I want this to be a nice tight stitch with no spaces in between the stitches, rather than going, and you can take the pins out as you go, rather than going forward, continuing to go forward with my stitch right here, because you see that would leave a large space there. And I don't want the spices that I'm going to be putting inside of this to pop out. So instead I'm going to go backwards one like this and put the needle in where the first stitch ended. And I'm using a thread that does not match, as you can see, because it makes it easier for you to see what I'm doing. Okay, so that's a little crooked, but it's all right. Okay, now I'm going to go in again on the back. And you could make these stitches smaller if you're able to do that. I'm going to keep making them big so that you can see more easily what I'm doing. Generally, smaller stitches are better if you can make it smaller. But if it's your first time sewing, Just don't worry about it too much. It's alright if your stitches are a bit big or a bit crooked, because how else are you going to learn, right? Okay, so now I'm going to put that back in where the second stitch ended, so I'm going back one. So this stitch is actually called the back stitch for that reason. And now I'm going to put my thread through from the back side again, and it's going to be popping out the front. And if I'm not happy with that, because I can see it's going a bit crooked, so the pattern on the plaid at the back may not necessarily be helping me make it straight on the front. So I'm going to watch where my needle pops through on the front until I'm happy with that. Okay, I think that's pretty straight now. All right, so you're just going to keep going like that. So one thing to keep in mind is when you're pulling it through, if you see that the thread is starting to loop up a lot, just go slowly, because if you don't, your thread can actually form a tangle back here, or even a knot. And then if you can't get that tangle or knot out, you might have to cut it and start over. So it can pay to go a bit slowly. If you're finding that you're getting a little loop like this where it's not getting pulled through correctly, you can grab your thread between your fingernails or your fingers and just go like that until the loop goes in all the way. And I am keeping an eye on the back as I go, because I don't want to have any loops or knots back there that are forming without me realizing it. And you can see with the back stitch, it can be hard to keep both the front and the back looking straight, equally straight at the same time. So if you can do it on a sewing machine, then actually that's really great for making both the front and the back look the same. But hand sewing is nice too. It's kind of nice and relaxing. If you did want to make both sides look the same, you could stop doing a back stitch and just start doing a regular stitch where you don't go backwards at all. So I'm going to switch over to just a regular forward stitch so you can see what that's like. And because I'm now leaving spaces between my stitches, because I'm not back stitching anymore, I'm trying to make each individual stitch and the spaces between them be a lot smaller. That way I won't have a problem with stuff popping out, even though I'm not doing my back stitch anymore. So you can see this is also a good option if you think you can make your stitches small enough to not have the problem that I mentioned before with stuff coming out. And the benefit of that stitch is that you can make the front and the back look more similar than how it looks with the back stitch. So you can choose how you prefer to do it. Okay, now when you get close to the edge, don't go all the way to the corner, because you have to remember that you want to turn this edge under, and you want to have enough space to do that. So I'm going to turn that under, turn it under all the way, and I'm going to pin it down as I go, starting at the corner, because that corner is going to want to pop free. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same on my back piece. I'm going to make sure that this part I already folded under stays folded under, and then on top of that I'm going to fold it down. Make sure my corner is staying nice and square with all the layers folded inwards. And just watch where you're pushing that needle through, and make sure your finger is not in the way. That would be bad. Okay, so now I'm going to show you quickly here how to handle the corner. So I'm at the corner. I'm actually going to take that pin out that I just put in, and then I'll pinch it with my finger instead, so that I don't get in the way with the pin here while I'm trying to sew. Okay, so I'm going to make sure everything looks nice on this side. Tuck that in a bit more. Okay, so now I'm ready to put my needle through from the back side like this. Okay. Pull it through. Nice and tight. Okay, now I want to make sure that that corner stays down, so I'm going to do one more really small stitch going right up to the corner. Okay, now turn my work, and now I'm going to go this way. And finally, I'm going to show you how to finish it off when you run out of thread. And at that point, you would need to start a new thread. Okay, so this is about as far as I would recommend you go. Don't keep sewing until you get right up to the needle, because then you have no room to maneuver to tie a knot. So you want to stop while you still have like 3 inches, I would say. Especially if you're a beginner, you're going to need more room to maneuver here. Okay, so I'm going to push my needle through, and there's a couple of ways you could do this. Okay, so if you don't mind if the knot shows, you could just push your needle through this stitch that's already there, and also make sure that it catches a few threads of the fabric. See how I did that? It's going under the stitch, and it's also catching a few threads of fabric. And I can go through. Come on. Okay, now I have a loop, so I can put my needle through this loop. So this is going to create a knot once I pull it through that loop. Okay, there's the loop I created. Pull it tight, and now you see there's a little knot on the back. If you don't like the look of the knot on the back, you can actually do the same thing that I just did on the inside. So I'll show you. I'm going to put it through only one layer, and I'm going to do another knot on the inside. So I've put it through only one layer, so now it's in between. Okay, so I'm going to, this one is harder to show though, but it's the same thing that I just did on the outside, only happening on the inside. So put the needle underneath the stitch if you can catch it, or if not, at least through a few threads of the fabric. Alright, now it's forming a loop again, as you can see. And we're going to put the needle through that loop. Okay, just put it through the loop, and now pulling tight. And if it doesn't want to completely pull, just do what I showed you before, where you run your fingernails over the thread, and it should tighten up. Okay. And if it still doesn't tighten up, grab each individual thread and pull each individual there. Now I got it to tighten. Now, whether you choose to go doing the knot on the back, or if you choose to do the knot on the inside, the next step is the same. So you're going to put your needle back the direction you just came, but in a way that hides it. So I'm going to push it through several layers of the fabric and batting, but it's moving along on the inside, so it's hidden. You can't see the needle from the front or from the back because I'm actually pushing it through the inside where the batting is. And now I'm going to make it pop out somewhere like an inch further down the line. So now I have about an inch worth of thread that's running through the fabric hidden. So that means we don't have to look at this ugly end dangling around. It's actually, the end is actually hidden. So now we can snip this end very, very close to the fabric, but careful not to actually cut your fabric. And now you can see it's only like that little tiny bit, and if you just sort of pull on your fabric a bit, it will even get sucked in even more, and now you can't see it at all. So that's how you do a knot and then hide the end. Alright, so at that point you would begin a new thread, like how I showed you to do at the beginning, with threading the needle and tying the double knot at the end. And keep going around all 4 sides. Actually, go around 3 sides, or maybe 3.5 of a side. Then you're going to stop and put in your spices, because we want to put our spices in the middle. And then when you put your nice hot mug on top, it should release a nice scent. And actually, I like the instructions that I read here on this original craft, which was donated to the library. Hit the mat with a hammer to reactivate the scent. I love that. So you get to hit it with a hammer if you want it to smell even better. Or if the scent fades over time, you can reactivate it that way. Alright, so now they're in there. And once I sew all 4 sides, they will be trapped in there for all time. And our lovely mat will be finished. And after you do put your spices in, sew it up the rest of the way. And then tie a knot and hide it, just like I showed you before. And this little guy that is poking out here from when we first started, you can actually just push that down in, and then when you go to tuck this end under, it will be hidden in there. Alright, so don't hesitate to stop by my office at the library if you're watching this and you're a local person. If you need a bit of extra help or tips on your project. And good luck! Happy Art Saturday! Bye!